Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I want to talk to you about how to write a paper with a graduate student. So if you don't know me, I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out as much as I possibly can. All right, so writing with graduate students is always very, very tricky because you want to make sure that they develop their skills on their own and they develop their own ideas, but you also want to prevent them from making any sort of mistakes that you made in the past. So this is not unlike, kind of like a mentorship or employee relationship, or, even a parenting relationship, or where you're a good friend and you see your good friend doing something that you wish that you can change. This is a very, very similar relationship in terms of that, but you want to help them grow as human beings, and that's why you don't want to sort of necessarily control everything that they are doing, because often people create really innovative, interesting ideas when they are allowed to do the things that they would like to do, right? This is very, very well known within entrepreneurship and innovation research, is we have to sort of give people opportunities to do things on their own and develop ideas on their own, but as well as have structure around those particular ideas and develop those individuals within organizations. This is pretty well-known stuff. But in terms of working with a graduate student and helping them write a paper, what I would suggest is that you imagine yourself, or you view yourself as kind of like a sandbox, right? Where you're helping the graduate student develop within a nice sort of set of conditions before they get let loose in the real world and they sort of tackle larger problems going forward. So, you want to, in terms of some tips going forward, you want to encourage them to make some mistakes, and you want to have a controlled environment for those mistakes. So what do I mean by that? You want to ensure that they do have some mistakes and bumps and bruises along the ways to grow, but you want to make sure that they have the bicycle helmet on. So you don't let mistakes go too long and into the future. You might sort of help them. You might have them develop the paper or develop ideas on their own, but then at some point in the future, you step in and you give them some pointers and help out, and you develop their writing capabilities. That is going to be a really, really good framework or way to think about how to work with graduate students going forward. Another thing I want to point out is that your job is not necessarily to sort of direct and sort of boss people around as a way that we might think in terms of leadership, but it's more of the way as removing barriers from individuals, right? And allowing them to grow and to flourish on their own, right? So you want to encourage them to grow as individuals, and you want to look for barriers that they might face and sort of work on those barriers in terms of removing them so that they can grow and develop. You also have to, and this is the tricky thing I find in terms of, working with graduate students, working with any students, is that you need to help them focus and specialize in a particular area that they would like and enjoy going forward. Because we know we have great returns from specialization. There's hundreds of years of research that have shown this in terms of we do better as human beings when we specialize in a particular thing, right? So that's the reason why we have, specialist doctors, for example, because they can understand that little tiny area a little better than somebody else that is more of a generalist. But we also want to ensure that they pick that area by themselves, right? So it's a fine balance in terms of helping individuals focus in a particular area, in terms of figuring out where their interests are, because you want them to go forward to realize that they have their own brand, their unique identity that they can leverage, and that they really enjoy who they are as individuals, right? So we're sort of you have to walk this sort of balance between being too focused and forcing them to specialize too much, but also not having them waste a tremendous amount of resources going in many different directions. So, what we could sort of draw upon is in machine learning research or, I study learning. What you might want to do is have individuals search at the beginning for a while and then help them narrow in and choose a particular alternative that best suits them. That's often a sort of a nice way to explore the landscape and then choose an alternative that sort of best fits, find the best alternative that is going to have the long run highest outcomes for that particular individual going forward. The other thing that I've learned, and this is a nice exercise, and I do this too. This is for my own self in terms of maintaining, motivation, making sure that I'm having fun, all those kind of things. But you want to sort of focus on one-page assignments and thinking about how can we structure one-page assignments rather than having them go down and write, 30 pages or 40 pages all at once. It's going to be a total waste of time for everybody. What you want to sort of think about is how can we break up a paper in terms of, one page or a couple of paragraphs that they can work on and develop and have fun with before you move on to the next thing. And you want a lot more give and take like that because you're going to get a lot more learning that happens. There's more feedback that can happen, and it can prevent people from going off and veering off in different directions, right? So that's really important with the process. The other thing to ensure is to ensure that people are having fun in the process. And I know that there's many different definitions of fun, right? So people climb mountains, people do these, is it Tough Mudders and things like that, do really crazy things to have fun. They're not necessarily fun in the sense that, you're smiling and all that kind of stuff all the time, but it is challenging. It is something different. It is, that there's something about it that you want to do that. And so that's what you want to encourage the relationship or the graduate student to feel like, is that they're challenged, they're having fun, that they really want to do the things that they're wanting to do. And you can monitor and you can sort of pick up where things are kind of going in one direction. And at that moment where things are kind of going off the rails, you probably want to have a conversation and see how they're feeling. Really just have a personal conversation and be a real human being with that individual and trying to figure out what's going on in terms of making sure that they come back and they do all the things that they should be doing, right? So that's an important thing, is having these personal, real, authentic conversations really are a way to ensure that you don't kind of veer off in a weird direction. The other thing that I try, not to say I'm very good at it, what I try to do is let, students talk more than I do. Now it's hard to sort of, let students talk more than you do, because in your mind you always are like, oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. But what you want to do is encourage them to develop their own ideas. And the way that you can do that is to have them talk and think through ideas out loud. And it's going to be very difficult in the sense just not ready for that. When I was a graduate student, that was totally me. I wasn't ready for it. I was really shy. I didn't want to speak up. I'm still shy. I'm kind of introvert by nature. And, getting people to think through these things, these YouTube videos have been very, very good for me because it allows me to get out of some of that stuff, right? And get those sort of nerves going forward out of me so I can actually develop ideas. And so getting people to talk out loud, to think about things, it's kind of like the Carl Weick idea of just getting people to talk and write things down so that they can understand what they are thinking about. That's going to be really helpful going forward. So if you don't know, Carl Weick is a famous social psychologist at the University of Michigan doing some really interesting stuff, so you could check him out. But basically, just having them walk through things and having them do it themselves is going to get them to develop unique and interesting ideas. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that you should, when you're developing a paper, the last thing you want to do is tackle the entire paper all at once. What you want to do is just work on little tiny chunks in the paper. I know I mentioned that, but it's really important to think about that. How can you break up the paper into little tiny chunks that you're doing different tasks, and as you're developing and working at these papers. And it really does help, because it just doesn't seem like a daunting task where you're just overwhelmed and you get that feeling of like, I can never do this thing. But if you tackle on little tiny things, you can actually accomplish a lot of stuff over the long run, and it's fun to do it. So that's all I really wanted to talk about with this video, is to ensure that we all struggle with this. It's not easy. It's sort of leading other people and leading graduate students, but we could all do this a little better. Not to say that all this stuff is correct and right and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just saying these are some tips that you can go forward in terms of working with graduate students. I know you can do it. You probably can learn a lot of stuff. You're going to learn more about you than you are about the graduate student, in terms of how you manage these things. But I encourage you to do it. Go have fun. If you like this video, do give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.